Hey folks, happy 3-2-1 and happy spring. This is my third attempt this morning. I think I got the settings right. Thank you, YouTube. I wanted to do a quick lesson today on lead and melody playing and how most people, I would say on average, almost everybody deals with this at some point. When you get to a point where you've been playing for a while and you've learned your scales and you've been practicing working up and down the neck, developing your facility, developing your knowledge of where things are, what I call mapping the neck, which is really important. Guitar is a very geometric instrument. It's a very visual instrument. Not everyone is visual about how they perceive it, but it's a useful and convenient way to organize this matrix. And that's the thing that you want to remember, is that the guitar neck is a matrix and that it is essentially a set of multiple linear pathways. It's like trying to get from point A to point B on a grid street layout like Manhattan, where there's multiple ways to get from one place to another. There is not a single path. Now, when I talk about scale boxes, when I use that term box, I'm talking about simply mapping a set of locations on the neck. So, for example, a minor pentatonic. Right? And you can just learn that as a finger pattern. Pointer, pinky, pointer, ring, pointer, ring. This is probably familiar to any of you who have ever played any kind of lead guitar, even taken a couple of guitar lessons. A lot of teachers will introduce this really early on. What people don't talk about is how the heck do you make music out of it? So I'm going to take this A minor pentatonic and I'm just going to improvise for a moment. Now, I'm not using a backing track. You don't need a backing track for this. This is a specific exercise in thinking and listening. And so you're actually better off responding only to yourself and not to a backing of some kind. If that's not something you think you can do, I'm going to assure you that you can, but it requires tuning in more specifically to what your fingers are doing. So if I do something like this. Okay, so that was using that main pentatonic box with a couple of extensions. You might see that I moved down here, and I'll reinforce that if you are familiar with this, you probably know about the blue note right here. You probably know about this extension down here. And probably this one up here too. Right, the B.B. King box. What makes that sound musical? What makes it musical is that I am phrasing. And phrasing does not necessarily mean just playing a few notes. It does not necessarily mean being simple. Phrasing simply means that there is some kind of organization to what you're doing. And that organization is rhythmic and melodic. Okay? Rhythmic in the sense that I'm going to play a few notes. I'm going to call it a phrase. It's just like when I speak to you, I'm speaking in phrases, right? Hopefully I don't just run all my words together and never have a break in the rhythm and it just goes like this. And honestly, I can't even keep this going with my brain because it doesn't make any sense. When I speak clearly and intelligibly, you hear one idea at a time and your mind puts them together to create the larger meaning. So this is what happens in improvising. If I play a single lick, that's not even a lick, that's a note. I have to figure out how long I'm going to wait before I play the next note. 2, 3. Two notes. If you don't feel how to play those rhythmic things. You don't have to be that fancy. You don't have to be that syncopated. You can be very straightforward. You can 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, what did I do there? I chose a rhythmic pattern. I mapped out a little piece of my pentatonic box. So we might say that this is also a box, but it's a little one, right? It's 3 notes, but it's a piece of our larger pentatonic form. It's a subset. This set of notes is a subset of the larger set. And so a simple exercise would be to take that large pentatonic box, start to break it up in your mind into smaller, say 2-string segments. So maybe we're just talking about this, or this, or this. And as long as I keep some kind of sense of beat and pay attention to basically how I space out my notes, I can play a very musical little solo by just switching back and forth between string pairs and playing a short musical phrase. What I'm playing with is ups and downs, higher and lower, going higher in pitch, going lower in pitch, or lick on a higher area or a lower. Just having that contrast between bass and treble creates a lot of musicality. And if you're listening to this saying, well, Dave, where are you getting the rhythmic stuff from? It is true that I've absorbed, any player over the years has absorbed lots and lots and lots of patterns, and patterns are rhythmic as well as melodic. And it's something that you do eventually tap into, but I think it's something that you have to concentrate on as you practice. And so even if you have to do something like just give yourself a repetitive rhythm, ba 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 ba, going boo-da up and then ba-da down, call and response. It's one of the core concepts of the blues. You start playing around with it, you will start to find variations. I think very few people are so linear that they have to mathematically plan everything. Now, there are some people that think that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, some people don't even like to improvise anything. But my point is that once you start to flow with it, a great deal of the challenge comes from one's own inhibition. Because if you don't think you know what to do, I think you have to be a certain kind of person to just jump in and say, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. And that is honestly a big part of learning how to improvise, because you also have to embrace the uncertainty. You don't know what's coming next. Now, if you're what we're going to call composing a solo, in the sense that it's not about improvise, it flows out, and that's how it goes, in the sense that it's more like, this is how I want this to be. And when I am, say, in a recording situation and I want to record a solo, my goal, hopefully, is just to flow and get it right, single pass. But it doesn't always work that way. And sometimes you do end up lick by lick. And that's a slow of the same process that I've been demonstrating to you here. Is taking ideas, pardon me, focusing in on a certain small element of that idea. Let's say our small element is that we're limiting our notes to these 2-string forms. Let's say our other small element is that we're playing with short rhythmic, I'm going to call them cells, just a rhythmic pattern that is not long. And if you are saying to yourself, well, what about solos where there's lots of notes? So I woke up in my this morning with the solo from Van Halen's Jump in my head. I don't know why. It's one of my favorites of his though. And Van Halen's a great example of a player who played a lot of notes but had impeccable phrasing. And you can take all of those flurries and break them up. If there's a long string of notes, then within that long string of notes is a set of short, what we might call substrings, cells, subphrases, however you want to think of it. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little more improvising in this same box. But, well, no, let's do it this way. I'm going to start in this box, and then I'm going to move up to an upper box. Let's say I did this recently with a student. Let's say you've learned your, quote, 5 positions of the pentatonic scale. I know my scale. I don't know what to do now. Well, let's extend those sub boxes between forms. So let's say I'm going to use this one, this one, but up here, and then here. I mean, check this out, right? I can use 2 fingers, index and ring, and I can play 4 note boxes. The same fingering in a variety of places. And, I am following my mental map of where the pentatonics are. I'm not just doing this blindly. But check out how musical this is if I take those 4 note 2 finger boxes. Right? So there's the flurry of notes at the end there. It's still just within a small section. This is a concept that hopefully you shouldn't find difficult to expand because it'll work on any scale. I can do it with a major. Limiting to 2 strings. 2 strings. 2 strings. 2 strings here. Well, 3. And I will acknowledge that the rhythmic facility is one of the keys in this. And so something you could do to practice this might be, here, let's try it this way. Can I do this without goofing up my, I don't want to mess with it. I was going to put up a track, but I didn't have it ready. So you can take one of those little boxes and improvise rhythmically over, say, a 1-chord vamp. So let's say something is going and you just, even if all you do to start with is match the pulse, and my recommendation is that you move a little, whether it's a foot tap, a head nod, it doesn't matter what it is. If you want to feel the beat, you got to move with it. You have to internalize it. Okay, and so I'm just going to play with bop, 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 da, 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 bop, 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 da, da, bop, 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 ba, da, bop, bop, bop. I've got lots of experience doing this kind of thing. I was the kind of kid that sat and did this stuff. You might have one of those kind of kids, and maybe you want to shut him up. I don't know. Bop, 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 bop. Right? But again, I mentioned before the degree of inhibition that most of us have, and just being willing to sit and make sounds. And I would totally encourage you, and you might have to do this on a far side of the house with the door closed so nobody hears you because you will feel self-conscious, just to be able to explore articulating a rhythm with your body and then translating that to the guitar. So using the voice is articulating with your body. Bop, bop, bop on the guitar. It's really pretty fundamental. So to sort of wrap this up, there are 3 main concepts here. One is that a really good way to step out of just going up and down scales is to break those scales up into small segments. 4 notes, 5 notes, 2 strings, 3 strings. Identify a few of those, even if it's within one shape, say in 2-string pairs, or a couple of shapes, or you pick 2 fingers and you identify where that pointer ring box is, and you simply view these as a bunch of Legos that are on the table in front of you, and you can pick up this one and you can pick up that one, and you can put them together in all kinds of different ways. That's a fundamental concept. The next is to recognize that one of the ways you put them together is thinking about the rise and fall of the line and the spacing in between the notes, which is just simply saying, do I go up or do I go down? How far do I go? And at what point do I pause? And how long do I wait until I play the next thing? That's pretty fundamental. Last idea is developing the rhythmic flexibility by learning how to articulate rhythm in your body. This comes more naturally to some people than others. Not a bad thing to pick up something, maybe a drumstick. Anyone who says they don't have good rhythm, I guarantee can still do this. I have yet to see somebody that can't just take a stick and hit something with a steady beat. But if you can't, there's musical skills there that I've developed over the years that allow me to do that. But what you can do is keep the beat and just recognize, well, am I on the beat? Am I hitting some of the beats instead of all of them? Am I hitting in between the beats? You can start with that. Just looking at the beat as a ruler, a steady reference that you measure against. That's why we call measures, bars in music, measures, because that is exactly what you're doing, is measuring pulses in the passage of time. These are really fundamental concepts. And this will be a great discussion. So if you have thoughts about this, please comment, and I will keep an eye on this. I will come back, and it's a good conversation to have. And I'm interested in how intelligible this set of ideas is. If you find this to be a clear set of directions and something actionable that you can go and practice. So to sum that up, the actionable thing is identify the big box, break it up into small boxes, and experiment with playing short musical cells, sub-phrases, 3, 4, 5 notes, and pausing in between. And then eventually, long lines become a set of these put together. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to play, since I mentioned, oh, I didn't. Okay, that was before one of my false starts. B.B. King's intro to The Thrill Is Gone. Because B.B. is definitely a player that you think of as being a box player. He hangs out in certain places. But I'm talking about phrasing. That's a long phrase, but it's full of pieces. First piece. Next piece. You can clearly break it down, but he just runs them together one after another. And BB's a great example of that. That is the way he phrases. And it's worth sitting down and learning transcriptions, learn some of these people's solos, because that is partly how you get these things into your hands. It's fun. You do get a lot of growth out of it. I find it really satisfying to dig into learning what some of my favorite players have done. So anyway, I hope that this all feels clear and actionable to you, because I do think it is. And as I said, it's a worthwhile discussion to have, and that's something we can continue in the comments if you like. I really am aiming to keep these streams on Monday morning. I know I haven't been here the last couple of weeks, but this is a good time. So, I'm trying to make 9 a.m. Central, but some Mondays I don't get here. And today I had 2 false starts. But I do want to mention one thing. Today is 3-2-1, as I said. And on this Thursday, 3/24, I am hosting another online workshop on getclatch.com. That is get, G-E-T, Clatch, K-L-A-T-C-H. And this is the latest in the series I am calling The Lonely Guitarist, which is a set of workshops on solo playing. And I don't mean guitar solos like lead. I mean solo as in you are alone playing a tune and putting together as much of it as you can by yourself, melody, bass, chords. And we focus on a particular tune each time. This time, we're looking at the Beatles Yesterday, and it's a beginner-friendly workshop because I'm going to walk through the concepts, how you take a melody, how you start to fit it to the chords, and we're going to work with it's very satisfying to be able to play that way, and that's something else that I've heard a lot of people express an interest in more recently because so many people are realizing that if you play mostly alone, it's more satisfying for the music to be self-contained. So this workshop is this coming Thursday, the 24th on getclatch.com, Getklatch, $25 for an hour and a half. And you will receive all the tabs. I'm going to walk you through the whole process. It's been a lot of fun, and I do this every month. So if you're interested, go to getclatch.com and sign up. And if you're watching this after the fact, this is an ongoing thing, and more of these will go on. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Expect the Monday streams to continue, and I will do my darndest to get myself on an actual schedule. So thanks for watching. You guys have a good one.